again in its full glory. Up in here, there's another little patched area that, who knows why, but it's there. So Lawrence, in our story, he gets shipped with his amputated leg up to St. Louis. In St. Louis, there was a place that's got some history to it in and of itself called Jefferson Barracks. And in Jefferson Barracks, there were people mustered in and out of the Civil War, and obviously it was a hospital. When his parents found word, the oral history tells us that they left from Kossuth, Iowa, and took the quilt with them in the hopes of bringing him home. Remember, because you don't really know that disease can result if wounds aren't taken care of properly or if amputations are done improperly. They went in to see him with the quilt to present it to him. Thought that that might be a good thing to help the spirits of a young man who has lost his leg. But he died on June 13th, 1864. Everybody would like to be remembered as a hero, and so one of the things that I had read in the history of this regiment was that he had been shot as he had grabbed the flag and rushed to defeat the enemy. Was he the color bearer or not? I don't know, but at least somebody had wanted to give him that sort of an honor as he had died. But there's a letter that James, his father, had been written to David, who I'm descended from, and it says, "Poor boy, his Bible bears the marks of constant use. I often read to him in the Bible, and he would ask me to read the 91st Psalm, which he had every verse pencil marked." And that 91st Psalm, some of you may be familiar with, but it is interesting because when I first read that, I said, well, let's go read what that has to say. And it says, "Though thousands may fall beside you, harm shall not come to you if you believe in God." And so the rest of those letters and those writings talk about his difficulty of, will I go into heaven now? Am I saved? Am I not saved? I believed in the Lord, and I went through all these battles. Shiloh, other battles, Donaldson, and I didn't fall, but here I've fallen, and so what has been wrong with my faith? And so the father has letters too that talk about where do we go wrong? Why is it my son who has fallen? But by the time that that cemetery monument was dedicated, he seems to have understood the importance of keeping the Union together and in the abolition of slavery, because he penned a letter that had said just how proud he was of his son and his sacrifice. So subsequently, the travels of this quilt have been from Iowa and then to the brother, who moved to Elbert County in the late 1870s, and then into Denver. And like I said, it had been kept in a box since 1989, and then in a frame until 2014, when it was displayed here by me, the great-great-grandnephew of Lawrence Henry Clay Bruce. So we'll talk again about the provenance. And the provenance is, maybe I have or maybe I haven't convinced you. But today, the Civil War quilting is kind of a big deal to find something like this. I talked about Weeks and Beld in 2011. They wrote a book that said there are 15 Northern soldier quilts known to exist as of 2011. Most of them are the potholder type of quilts. And so those were the quilts where, a group of women in their community would have gotten together and not had a specific story or a specific reason, but just put their pieces of fabric together. And those are almost always signed, too. They, some of them, I guess, are kind of funny. It's like, I hope this finds you well, and if you are good looking, please look me up in Springfield, Massachusetts. I guess that's Match.com for the 1860s. So of those 15 that Weeks and Beld knew about, only 4 had specific stories like this one, and that's why I feel really privileged to have it. And I think it really is a unique piece of Americana. Since 2011, I did some research on the internet and found one had shown up kind of like it did here today. That it was in Illinois, and a similar type of story, and shared it at one of the quilt societies in Illinois. Then there was another story about one in Texas, and that one's got an interesting story because it was sort of half Southern Confederate flags and half American flags. I don't know if they just didn't know who was going to win or if they just had fighting on both sides. But I believe that the provenance is supported, and now we can, in the next edition of Weeks and Bells, hopefully they'll agree that they've got 5 specific soldier quilts that they know of in existence. Varied conditions on these. The Massachusetts one I just found out about last week, because in the Civil War magazine it had said that the war-era quilt blocks returned to Massachusetts, and so somebody in North Carolina had found at a flea market just several of the blocks, not the entirety of the quilt itself. And so they took it to the museum in Massachusetts in order to have it displayed. And really, these quilts were not made for decoration. They were made for use. And as you can well imagine, quilts in that day either got left behind in the battlefield, because you're off in a battle, and yeah, you want to keep your quilt and your bedding, but you want to keep your life, and you got to do your duty first. Or you're getting trounced, and you're going to run, and you're going to leave your quilt behind. Or just the years of sleeping on the ground and wear and tear of the quilt left it such that there just aren't a lot of these around. And that's why I just think that the condition of the quilt, it's amazing that we still have it in this condition today. And the only reason we have it in this condition today is because of the tragedy that befell Lawrence Bruce in 1864. So, let's see if we can find one more. I have a few thank yous. Thank you to you all, the attendees, the Quilt Museum, for giving me this opportunity to come and talk about my favorite subject, this quilt in the Civil War. When I said that it was professionally reviewed and some of those ideas, Cindy Brick came and reviewed it for us and gave us some ideas about the quilt and how it was made and put together. Ms. Mahoney is the one who provided these wonderful photos. And my wife, I'm going to embarrass her too. She's going to come up and give some flowers. She, about a year ago, she came over and had the quilt in a box to come get it photographed. And so she just showed up here. Said, would you like to see my quilt? And they opened it up, and it's not every day that I guess a 151-year-old quilt shows up. But I think that the real reason that she did it is because she's been hearing about it for 26 years and wanted me to finally talk about the quilt with someone else. So thank you for that opportunity. I'm happy to talk about the Civil War or the quilt or this family heirloom with you all. It's really been a privilege to share this story that I find so fascinating with you. Thank you.